Welcome to the Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football channel. I am one of the post-game hosts, Desmond. I've got Dre, my partner, with me, and also we have Mark Rogers as well. Before we get started, please like and subscribe to the video, as well as share it out on social media. And also, don't forget to follow Mark's main page, The Voice of College Football. And also, you can see down the ticker there. You can also join him on Patreon, where he has his picks from not only himself, but also other media members. So, gentlemen, how are we doing today? Dre, how's it hanging?
Good. How about yourself?
Good. Looks like you're wearing black. Is that to signify the funeral of the college football season? It's now over.
That would have been probably smart, a good idea. No, just that's just regular, warm attire. It's a long john, so thermal.
Nice. Mark, how you
He's
doing?
probably like me. He's got about 22 different versions of black shirts in his closet. That's what I've got.
Absolutely.
They all look the same once we get on video.
Very true. So it's a very small little clip of what they get to see of our wardrobe. So it's
That's a good
By
thing.
no means am I winning a fashion contest, so I don't think it really matters.
Nothing wrong with that. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm good.
Good. Well, we are 2 days removed from the national championship, so that does spell the end of the football season. But of course, we have the now pre-draft process that is going on with the Senior Bowl and invites and who's going to be coaching them and all that good stuff. So it's over, but it's not quite over, especially for the draft eligible guys and the seniors. I mean, this is as important, especially for some of the guys, as their season and game tape and game film, things like that. So what they do at the Senior Bowl, and I believe it's Mobile, Alabama, and the interviews, pre-draft process, those things are just as important. So these guys who are the seniors, things like that, have a lot going on these next 3-4 months. So it'll be interesting to see. But wrapping up the football season, we can kind of talk about the final rankings. Michigan, I believe, ends up being number 3 behind, I think it's Alabama and Georgia. Georgia obviously 1, Alabama 2, I believe, and then Michigan number 3. So, Dre, what are your thoughts on that number 3, ranking as far as the final ranking goes?
I mean, it's a nice consolation, to the season. I mean, at the end of the day, I judge the season based on what you accomplish and especially what kind of trophies you won. And so, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have cared if we were ranked. This is just me. I wouldn't have cared if we were ranked 7 or 3rd, or 10th. We got the Big Ten title. We got to our first college football playoff invitational. That's pretty cool. But this ranking, I mean, to me, when you look at this season historically, you won't think about where we finish ranked. You'll think about the championship. So, that's really how I look at it. But it's cool.
Before the season started, I don't think any of us would have predicted Michigan finishing there. So I definitely it's right before we kicked off, Mark had mentioned it's the highest they've finished in 24 years. So that part is pretty incredible. There's the historic piece of that, but I agree with you, Dre. The thing that Michigan fans are going to remember is beating Ohio State, winning the Big Ten championship, and getting to the playoffs. So, Mark, what is your thoughts on it?
Well, I was going to ask Dre, as the one guy that has his emotions invested here in Michigan football, if it matters. So we answered my question before I got a chance to ask it, but some people, the rankings matter to them. I find it more and more with the playoff being what it is, that people are super, super invested in the rankings during the season, even not the college football playoff rankings, even the AP and the coaches poll before the playoff rankings, they care. I point to my own videos in terms of how many people watch the rankings that I release versus I released my final rankings the day after the championship game, and it seems like people are like, yeah, whatever. They're going to be ranked at the end of the season. I don't care. But they cared during the season, and I don't know if that was all tied to the playoff. But I got
Absolutely.
to tell you, growing up, I sure did care what the rankings were. Like I cared too much what the rankings were. Like you catch me at 15, 20 years old, and if I think Ohio State should be number 5 and they're number 8, like I'm ready to pick a fight. Like it and now I take it in more as, well, how much respect do I have for the people that are involved in the rankings? Well, it depends on the individual. I think some of them are very capable, knowledgeable, and competent, and others aren't. And I see so many discrepancies with the rankings and inconsistencies that I don't take it to heart.
Yeah, I think one part of it that is important and is different now is the college football playoff, because when you look at the AP and coaches poll, right? So there's the way too early top 25 is out already, and Michigan is, I believe, 5. That's important because you look at, let's fast forward to next season, right? A one-loss Michigan team with a preseason ranking of 5 is much different than a one-loss Michigan team that is unranked, that starts the season unranked. I think you still probably get to the same end result, but depending on how things fall, that that it does kind of come into play a little bit. I think with the Big Ten being as strong of a conference as it is, it's probably more much ado about nothing. But for some teams, I mean, I look at Wake Forest. I think that if their season, I don't think they were ranked preseason. So you look at how things ended there. That those things are important now, the preseason rankings for teams, because of the playoff, and really they don't vary that much from the AP and the coaches poll. Really, the CFP until the actual last ranking. I mean, they're pretty much just grabbing the AP poll, coaches poll, kind of a pretty close mashup, giving us one thing to kind of be upset about and talk about for a week, and then rolling. So that part, I think the preseason, although you still have to go out and win the games, those things do matter when it comes to the end of the season, especially October, November, when the CFP rankings first start to roll out.
Yeah, and I think it's just like it's just the end of the season rankings is when everything has already been done. Like beforehand, you're going through the season. That's when you start to dream. That's when you start to set goals, right? And those rankings on a week by week basis are your tracker of how you are trending towards those goals potentially. Besides just the win and loss column, right? Who you beat, right? Because you could be playing a soft schedule, but as long as you're going up the rankings like you're supposed to, or staying in the hunt like you're supposed to, like say for example, Michigan has a really weak schedule next year, where if they're already at 5, they never lose a game. Well, but you're going to be watching that closely. Like, okay, let's make sure we stay around 5. So as long as because when we do get to our tougher games, Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State later in the season, then that will help give us an extra boost to get to the playoff, right? So, but once you already gone through the playoff, you're going through the conference championship, we're like, hey, just so you finished 3rd in the country. Well, the season's over. We've already accomplished what we can accomplish, right? There's nothing that we can use. And it's not like that ranking is going to carry over to next year. It's not as of now. So, like you finished 3rd, you're going to start off 3rd next year. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, okay. Maybe it'll be a little bit more interesting if that was the case, but that's not how it works either. So, it's just kind of like, oh, I think it's pretty accurate. I mean, like, I think it's clear that Michigan isn't Bama or Georgia. I think those two are those teams that you saw it on Monday night, that they are 1 and 2. And then, look, Michigan, I think is a better team than Cincinnati. They're at 3. And if you want to argue Cincinnati, Ohio State at 4, that's fine. But, other than that, I think they got it. I think it's a correct ranking. But I got to say this, there's a pretty big gap between 3, 1, and 2. I can say that, and that's that's the harsh reality as a Michigan fan, and for the most part, a Big Ten team fan is that, um, hell, even Ohio State at times really hasn't played well for the most part against those teams. Um, it's kind of like, man, yeah, we finish high in the season, or we're in the mix, but when push comes to shove, when you play those top tier SEC teams, you're like, man, that's a whole nother level. We may be in the top five, but we're not 1 and 2. So it's definitely eye opening.
So I'm going to challenge you on that one point there. So other than one game, when has Ohio State in the last 7 or 8 years not played well against an SEC team?
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, they had a bad game in the national championship game. They got whipped.
So you're gonna say that?
No doubt.
So you're gonna say, okay, that's it's probably more recency bias for sure, Mark. With the game that what was the 2020 national title game,
Yeah.
Bama Ohio State, that wasn't very good, and it wasn't an SEC team. It was Clemson, who you guys got beat by in 2016, and then you guys got them for sure in 2020, pretty good.
And
who
in
did you guys
2015,
play?
the inaugural playoff, they ended up beating Bama.
They beat Bama that year. What about? So now all these years start to mix together. Now.
I feel like Ohio State's matched up against Clemson quite a bit. Am I off on that?
Oh yeah, 3 times in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah, they got whipped.
And they've
They got
won
crushed
one.
the first time.
They've lost. So the first there was one that you lost twice. One, I thought that it was a really cheap roughing the passer call that I thought changed the landscape of that game. I can't remember the safety.
Yeah, we'll stay with Michigan. We don't want to get me started on that. So,
Yeah. No, but anyway, no, I thought that what was that, 17, 18? I know it was Trevor Lawrence on that Clemson team.
That was in 19.
The year before you guys beat them. It was a really good game, and Justin Fields got a last minute pick. It was 19.
Yep. 19.
Okay, it was 19. So I guess you guys. I mean, they're not an SEC team. The overall point is that we don't win as being titles at the SEC, the Bamas and the Georgia, especially Bama. So and that goes for all of us.
Well,
but fine.
The part that's interesting is I think about the national championship, and I think when it comes to that Georgia roster, how they looked. You look at the flip side of Alabama, who had, we can all argue, or I think we're all in agreement, they had the best quarterback in the country with Bryce Young. And to me, even with how Alabama struggled offensively, he still looked amazing. But the thing is you look at how difficult it is to overcome a team that's just that talented. For Georgia, that defense, it was consistently a bend don't break. And when they got in the red zone, I mean, just consistently, it was, yeah, we're just going to hold you to a field goal. You can't do anything down here. Now, play calling wasn't great, but I mean, there's not too much you can do down when you're playing a defense like that. Like, they're just loaded. And that kind of takes me to, for Michigan, their next step. Like, I think, for me, I think it's just kind of stay the course. Like, as far as Michigan, what they need to do to get to that next step, like you mentioned, Dre, of getting to, in that competition of the top 1 or 2 teams, what do you need to do? Really, I think it's number one, stay the course, because Michigan recruits well. But the biggest thing that they have to do is you have to have 1 or 2 electric guys on the outside. And I think that's probably the one thing that they do not have. I mean, you could argue the Xavier Worthy, who you had on campus, but didn't work out with, whatever the case may be. There's rumors, but didn't work out there. But when I look at, Alabama with Jamison Williams, John Mechie, Georgia with George Pickens, he's on another level. And their other receiver, number 7, I'm not sure what his name was, but he was terrorizing the Alabama defenders. And then also Brock Bowers. I don't think Michigan has that guy today. Now, I'm not, super involved with who they have coming in as far as freshmen goes, but I think that's what's going to get you to the next level, because you look at Alabama in the SEC championship, how on earth did they beat Georgia the way they did when you turn around and see what happened in the national championship? Well, Jamison Williams was on the field for that game, and you had John Mechie for half of the game, so I think that's probably the thing that you're missing, because I think that's the great equalizer, is having a receiver who on one play can get you 65 yards and a touchdown. Like that, there's not too much you can do with that. And I think that's the one thing that Michigan needs to get to really put them at that next level, take that next step. Because, yeah, I mean, like I said, I just mentioned the guys with Alabama, Georgia. You look at Ohio State; they just had 3 guys like that, and one of them's coming back. So I think to really get to that next level, I think that is one of the things that is missing. And really, I would say that's just about it. But Dre, you seem to have some disagreements. So what say you?
No, I think you said that beautifully, Desmond. I just don't think it will ever happen. I think. No, seriously. I mean, no, I agree. No, we do. That would be very, very helpful, and definitely will help close gaps where we get, elite 5-star kids on the outside with 4.3, 4.2 speed, and that'll be fantastic if we can get that. But unfortunately, it's just in college football has always been like this in different eras, and there was different teams, and it was. I'm sound redundant, but different reasons why. But it's the have and have-nots, and I just think that until there is a change, and my personal thing is in the amount of scholarships that these teams can have, you're going to continue to have like this gap because, and you might see more. For example, USC, you might see Lincoln Riley start to flip some of these kids, high caliber kids that are going from California. And they're going into SEC territory. They're going to Ohio State, right? You might see him start to keep some of those kids, but for the most part, now I mean, kids will go from anywhere across the country to these powerhouses, and it's literally it's SEC territory. And then when you think about what Texas A&M just did this past recruiting, and when they really are breaking off the dollar bills, like it's. That's what you have to do when you're a have-not. And A&M, they're in a very good geographical area, naturally being in Texas. However, they don't have the cachet that Bama or Georgia or the other teams have. So now they've had to find another way to try to get kids on campus. So Michigan's going to have to think outside the box besides the state of course and recruit and hope you just find some of these kids. You're not going to get those kids unless you do something different like what Texas A&M did. I'm not proposing they do that. Just spend a ton of NIL money and stuff like that, but they're going to have to figure out something because they just a basic recruiting strategy, especially what they tend to focus in their geographical area. It's just not going to that's just not going to get close that gap, and that's just the reality,
Well, I would push back a little bit just because 2 things. Number one, like I mentioned, from what we saw with Xavier Worthy, granted it was some limited time. I think it was basically the last 6 games he started to come on a bit, and I think he had a 200-yard receiving game in the last home stretch of the season. You had that guy on campus. Like, you had that guy ready to put on maize and blue and play for you.
Man, you need more than one guy though, brother.
Well, but I mean, you can't get the second guy if you don't have the first one. You know what I mean? And he was you had him there. And 2, when you think about the geographic location of college campuses, most of them are not in big cities. And right. I would argue for the state of Michigan, Ann Arbor is a big city. So you have that advantage. Granted, I get it. It's cold weather and people can argue that all the time. But I see other places in the North get guys who can play some football. So
no, let's be more specific. That Ohio State gets guys to come up and play where it's cold. Okay,
correct. Yeah. I saw David Bell run off 200 yards against anybody who wanted to see him, and right. Purdue is up here in the North and the Midwest as well. So I think those are fallacies. I think this is the landscape in college football we're in today. Is facilities, coaching, and can I get to the next level? Those are the things that kids essentially want.
It's you forgot a big one. It's winning, and when just like Monday night, it's the reinforcement of what these kids see all the time. It's that you see that team that does not have a logo on their helmet, but they got the white stripe going down the middle and numbers on the side. And like that's it. That's what you see, and you want to go there. And I'm not hating, but it just is what it is. And you see, like, oh, I see Georgia all the time. I want to go to Georgia. Like
But
it's
that all
just
can
like,
change.
huh?
That all can change. When Nick Saban got to Alabama, they were losing 6-7 games a year.
lot.
Yeah,
They were losing to Louisiana Monroe. They were still Alabama historically. Like he didn't create Alabama. He's not Dabo. Well, Dabo Sweeney didn't create Clemson, but to a certain extent, as an elite team program, he did. So Alabama had all of this amazing history that was arguably, even before Nick Saban, the
Bear
greatest
Bryant.
in college football.
Yeah.
It was in that conversation, but it hadn't been that for 7-8 years, and they weren't getting good recruiting classes.
Really, when you look at it, the turning point for Alabama was Julio Jones. He was the guy that was high level recruit, went to Alabama and started bringing guys with him, like recruiting other guys. And really, when I look at the parallel, I would probably look at J.J. McCarthy. I would look at a guy who is a high level recruit, 5-star, who has no qualms in trying to recruit other high level guys to come and play with him. I mean, I think there's a receiver running back that he played with at IMG Academy who is now a senior that he's trying to get on campus. And JJ is a great mouthpiece for Michigan. So even where maybe Jim Harbaugh wouldn't be able to reach a certain kid, JJ may have that relationship with that specifically the guy he played with. I mean, a high school teammate, that's as good of a relationship as you're going to have. So like Mark said, I mean, it can change, and like I said, you just got to get one guy to change it. And JJ also is a quarterback that Michigan traditionally hasn't recruited as far as a high level 5-star guy. I mean, we can talk Shea Patterson, but that we saw how that worked out. But it could change with JJ.
He was a 5-star.
Correct.
Yeah. And also, and this is where speculation. This is part of Harbaugh. What Harbaugh wants, to have more freedom at Michigan with the transfer portal and having more expansion with NIL is, in terms of getting guys able to be accepted into the university. The transfer portal can help too, because you just saw a few players hit the transfer portal from Bama and Georgia recently, and I do believe that that is a potential avenue that, let's say, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, maybe Ohio State, those guys are tier 1, right? Especially let's say Alabama's Georgia, especially Alabama's tier 1. Right, and then you got tier 1B, right? Is that Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, right? And I think tier 2 is like Michigan, and then those type of teams. Okay, maybe the avenue for those teams in tier 2 to kind of take a step up, maybe not on a consistent basis, but maybe once every 4 years, is that you're able to really hit on some transfer portal guys. I think that's an avenue that Michigan can explore. Think if Michigan had a running back like Kenneth Walker III, right? Now, I really like Hassan Haskins. I like Blake Corum, but they're not individually as good as K9. Like, I thought Kenneth Walker III was the best running back in the country this year. I believe that. And if I'm not mistaken, he was a 3-star recruit going to, what was it, Wake Forest?
Mm-hmm.
Right? 3-star. And so, like, if you're able to potentially hit on kids like that, hitting gems and guys who are highly recruited, the guys who are at the Georgias and Bamas who decided, what, there's a Will Anderson kid in front of me. I'm not going to play for another year. Maybe it's time that I leave. And I'm a pretty good defensive end / linebacker myself. I just need the opportunity. Well, if you're Michigan, you swoop in, hey, son, we just won a Big Ten title. We were in the playoff. We're losing a lot of linebackers. We're losing 2 pass rushers. Maybe you can come play for us and start right away. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a potential avenue to close the gap on a one-off year type basis. But I don't know if there's anything that Michigan can do. I'm not saying it's impossible. I believe it when I'll see it to be on that level consistently.
Go ahead,
I'm
Mark.
gonna I'm gonna go another direction in terms of where Desmond was pointing to the gap between the two teams, and I'm not discounting Des what you had to say about the wide receiver and being able to get a couple of explosive guys, but I think this is where Ohio State's fallen behind too. And they've got the best wide receiver room in the country, and not that Michigan can't upgrade there. And Xavier Worthy, even without an established quarterback at Texas, still had an amazing season and showed what his future could be. But man, when I see N'Kobe Dean and Nolan Smith and Devontae Wyatt and just waves and waves of dudes at D line that can run, even though they're massively huge. And in N'Kobe Dean, obviously, he's a differently built athlete, just a missile. I think that front seven on defense is a difference.
Absolutely,
Mm,
absolutely.
that's interesting. Yeah. Well, and I because you look at Michigan and obviously they had the two stars up front in Aiden and Ajabo, but when we talked about the run game, as far as the linebacking core, there was something to be desired there. I think overall they played well, but you didn't see guys flashing the way that N'Kobe Dean and the Georgia guys were flashing, and
It's a different
it's
speed,
different.
man. It's a different speed, man. You know, the
Hmm.
scene, and I seen the way that N'Kobe Dean and what was number 41? Gosh, I can't think of his name. Till something Till. I can't think
Oh,
of it.
Tyndall,
Yeah,
Channing Tyndall.
yeah, like the way like to see those guys flash and just burst through the line of scrimmage through those tackles for loss. I mean, that's a different type of speed, man. And no offense to Josh Ross, that Josh Ross was doing stuff like it's a different level.
Hmm.
It's a different level. You know, like for example, like there was a play in the play, in the Michigan Georgia game, and we tried to do like a double reverse or something like that, or a swing pass of Blake Corum, and like they just blew that thing up like 5 yards in the backfield. Most teams that would have worked, like, but the speed and the recognition and be able to make up ground, it's just different. It's different.
Michigan ran a play probably about 4 series deep into the game where it was obvious, hey, you need to be doing something different. You need to get the ball out of your hand. They ran a play where McNamara, I felt horrible for him because I could see it coming from the time they snapped the ball. They had a jet sweep, fake handoff, and then a crisscross with a nut. They had a double fake, and he's just standing there for like an eternity, and boom, he turns around and gets blasted. And I'm like, why did you call that play? It takes too long.
Yeah.
Yep, that's not
That,
what you want. That's not what you.
with that type of speed, like you can do that against certain Big Ten teams because you can hold your own up front.
Or if
But
you've been beating them down on the ground and
right,
they're a little bit on their heels, like, okay, we're playing the run. We've been, boom, 6, 7, 8 yards a pop. And then all of a sudden you do something like that. But that wasn't the case.
no. We're getting blown up, and at that point, like to your point, Mark, Georgia's coming like those guys come like a bat out of hell. They're like, they can't block us, so we're just and they're definitely not beating us deep with the pass, So no,
Mhm.
I definitely agree with that, and it's and that Devin, I see some people bringing out Devin Bush. Devin Bush is a great example. Devin Bush was a kid with that kind of elite speed at the linebacker position, and he had not only ability to burst through the line of scrimmage and get tackles for loss, but he was also fantastic sideline to sideline, and it
Mhm.
was tough to get outside of him. And so, no, I think that's a great example. But here's the thing: those Alabama and Georgias, they normally have 2 or 3 Devin Bush type kids, right? Now they may not all go in the first round like Devin Bush did, right? But in terms of pure athletic raw ability, that's how it is. And so if teams like Michigan, they're gonna have to find a way to get more than just one-offs, and they got to get a few of those kids, and it all to me starts with getting really better, taking advantage of the NIL. The NIL is begging for teams like Michigan who are good, they're not great, to say, This is an opportunity for you to literally pay your way almost into the next level. Or the transfer portal. This is an opportunity for you to pluck groceries, and that for whatever reason these kids leave due to lack of opportunity or whatever it is that you probably wouldn't normally get in the normal recruiting process, where they can help you. And guess what? They can help you right away. And that's what's going to be so interesting, is where does Michigan go from here? Do they find a way to take advantage of these new changing avenues in college football so they can take that next step?
Yeah, I think it changes because you now get more than one shot at a recruit. If you don't sign him, if he doesn't sign his, national letter of intent with you, great. He can have one season at LSU and then maybe he's back in the portal and you get to build off of that relationship that you had with him while he was a junior or senior in high school, and now try to get him again.
I'm looking at the schools that currently have the most NFL players right now on 2021 NFL rosters. And this I always find fascinating. So we know that, Tom Brady's included on this for Michigan. So we really can't count him. We're really focused on what's been produced in the last 5 years under Kirby Smart and Jim Harbaugh, basically. What's going on now? Well, most of this is not Tom Brady, 20 years ago, because NFL careers are short and most of these guys have just been on the field and recruited and signed by those guys. So Alabama's at 53, Ohio State 47, LSU 46, Georgia 35, Notre Dame 34, Clemson 33, a surprising Iowa 33, Florida 32, Michigan 32, Georgia 35, Michigan 32.
See,
now that's just one measurement. That doesn't tell the whole story. We'd have to go look at how good those players are. If we're talking about players that are, just on special teams versus great players.
Jordan Glasgow's on the Colts. Like when I saw Jordan Glasgow, I saw him getting I'm like, this dude's an NFL player. Like he's on the Colts. Like he's like one of their special teams guys. He's been on the Colts the last 2 years. I'm like, we had this guy playing on the defensive line at like 215 pounds. You remember that? Like against Wisconsin, we had him lined up. Like what are we doing? Sorry, Mark, you triggered me there. Come just thinking about that. I'm like, it's like, yeah, but it's like we have. I think Michigan's good at putting try-hard guys in the NFL. We don't really put a lot of high-caliber football players in the NFL. I'll put it this way: that produce at a high level. I mean, Rashawn Gary, one of our most recent first-round picks, he just started to pan out for Green Bay.
I was gonna say, he's playing well this year. He's playing really well.
3 years, but it took 3 years, right? So it's like, I don't think Chase Winovich is doing much for the Pats right now. I'm not saying he's bad, and granted he's a third-round pick, so you're not expecting him to be like this great player. But ironically, I will say this though. Oh my gosh, what is his name? Sean McKeon has been getting some targets. I think, is he for San Francisco? Who does he play for? He plays for somebody in the
You might be right.
now.
He drove me nuts, man. I'm like, dude, he seemed to have very untimely drops. I'll just
Yeah, Michigan, I agree with that. Yeah. I wasn't shocked. He has good size. I wasn't shocked that he made it to the NFL, but I guess I am kind of shocked that he's found a way to get some playing time. He plays for the Cowboys. That's who he plays for. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, it's just I don't know. Well, Venice, what do you say? Really, bro, if you don't stop, to try hard guy, really. So you think Michigan? Venice Blue Dev. So you think Michigan? You disagree? You think Michigan puts a lot of high caliber NFL players in the league?
I think they used to. I know that.
Yeah, they used to. But not recently. I think we struggled with. We haven't, but once our guys have gotten there, they struggled to become stars. Not saying they haven't found roles, right? There's no diss to being a try-hard guy. Guess what? Most of the jobs in the NFL you can get for being a try-hard guy and being available. To me, the most important skills in the NFL is door availability and some kind of a high motor. They'll find you a spot more times than not.
If you told me, Desmond, your only job is to be a gunner on the punt team, I would be the best gunner anyone has ever seen and would not complain about it one time. I'd be very excited.
The minimum $600,000.
Right.
So
there's no shame in that. Hey, just hustle. You get $600,000.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
You got no problem. No
Done.
problem.
You need a practice player? I'm there. Yep.
I
Done.
think practice players don't they get? Oh, see, this is where misinformation. Someone told me somewhere like sometimes practice players will get up to like 250,000 or something like that. Like I don't. I mean,
I believe that is correct.
which is
Or
like
how about this? I've heard the same thing. So if it's a lie, we
I'm
both heard
like,
the same lie.
you need a practice dummy. You want me just to be the running back and be on scout team? Yes, no
Yeah.
problem.
Well, and in someone, so I think it was someone had commented that Michigan had just signed a 4-3 receiver, and I can't remember if it was Blue Dev that made the comment, but nonetheless, the tough part is because I think about a guy like DPJ, like he was someone who was, at the Nike camp, like electronic timing a 4-4, which if
Right.
you're not familiar, there is no messing up an electronic timer. If you electrically time a 4-4, that's how fast you run versus like a hand time of a coach. That is, there's a lot of variance there. But to me, even Donovan Peoples-Jones wasn't a deep threat when he was here at Michigan. I mean, I can remember what that Michigan State, he had granted it was a big play, but I mean, I don't remember him consistently getting deep and consistently running past defenders the way Jamison Williams or Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave do. So, even with that, there's still a difference, you know what I mean, than versus, okay, great, you time 4.37, but are you 4.37 on the field? And there's a big difference there.
Game speed, and I think we've had exceptions of kids. You like, wow, that is real 4.3 speed, and I think like Blake Corum, like when he's healthy, like that dude has electric type speed. I think Sanders still has electric type speed. I think Donovan Edwards has electric type speed when that guy gets going. And it's just some kids. Then it's like for another example on defensive end, Daxton Hill, like he's supposed to be extremely fast, and he is. But it's like maybe it's a little bit hard to judge with a defensive player because then you have to look at how much ground he makes up on on passes and then run support and stuff like that. But there's definitely like for a guy like DPJ, he definitely had flashes, right? Like I never forget. I think it was against Air Force. He as a true freshman, he took a punt return back for a touchdown. Like he had flashes at Michigan, but he just couldn't quite put it all together. And I don't know, was that due to play calling? Was that due to fit? I mean, there's a point in time, Des. I remember me and you were talking about 3 years ago, and we thought Michigan had the second best receiving core in the conference. Remember, they had Tariq Black, DPJ, and I'm drawing a blank.
Nico Collins.
Nico
I thought
Collins.
he was vastly underused
Right,
at
right.
Michigan.
We were saying that like 2 or 3 years ago. Like, dude, they may be right or tie with Ohio State. Like we thought they legitimately had 3 NFL receivers.
Mm-hmm.
When they were, because there's a point in time because Tariq Black, he kept getting hurting his foot. He couldn't get quite healthy after his freshman year, but he was so good as a true freshman. You're like, this kid's gonna be really good by the time he's a junior. And then you saw Nico, and Nico was fantastic in his size and his ability to win the jump balls. You're like, he's definitely an NFL player, and he is. And with DPJ, you're like, well, he's extremely talented. He definitely should be an NFL player. And maybe, and I will argue from a raw talent perspective, that group was more talented than the receiving group we had this past year, right? And could you imagine potentially if we had those 3 guys on this year's Michigan team and how different that dynamic would have looked? And that's no shot at the receivers we have this year, but I don't like Cornelius Johnson, for an example, and guys cut me off. I know I can rant a little bit. Well, Cornelius Johnson, I still haven't seen the pop, like anything special about him yet. He has to drop seeds sometimes. He drops passes. He sometimes has flashing as well. But it's like I don't see, like he's gonna win jump balls like Nico does. You know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think with Cornelius, he makes the plays that are there, but it's not often the explosive plays. You know what I mean? Like I haven't correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen any wiggle from Cornelius Johnson, and that's fine. Like every receiver's not not built that way. That's not everybody's game. But when I look at a guy like David Bell, like just how fluid he is running routes, John Mechie, like same way. Even though the trio at Ohio State, I know I keep talking with them, but even the guys at Michigan State, Reed and what was it Naylor, the other receiver, like those guys, you know what I mean? It's a different type of athlete, but it just kind of I think I still, my point remains the same as far as how I feel about it. Is I think that is something that would set Michigan, to take them to that next level. Because, like you said, it's a great equalizer. The fact that I can hit a 60-yard deep bomb, and, there's not too many defenders that can run with a guy who's that fast.
I don't really see, and to your point, Desmond, I don't really see a lot of teams that have an explosive passing game like that. Like, especially like Bama, like you guys like are so good at finding like these speed demon kids who are just able to create just great separation. Like the play that Jamison Williams got hurt, and we all saw that. And I text you right away. I'm like, that's it.
Yeah, I was watching
that.
I'm like, yep,
it was just clear as day. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
you plant and knee went lateral. Like that. It was clear as day. And thankfully, he should make a full recovery, and I think he's gonna be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just that play, and I think it was a little bit of busted coverage by Georgia, but it's just like even when you have busted coverage, that speed gets you even more open.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, man, it's a killer. You can't make a mistake. You have to be
Correct.
sound, because if you make one mistake, it could be a touchdown. Like there's a chance if his knee doesn't give, he might even score.
He might break that tackle. He might,
he
might break that tackle and be off to the races.
Yeah. I mean, if he's off to the races, I mean, who's going to catch him? You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's. I do agree, and I think that's like the hardest area. I think getting prime talent in the front seven and getting prime talent at the on the outside is the biggest gap. I think that's the hardest thing to do in terms of recruiting. I mean, you can find some really good offensive linemen, but dude, my alma mater, Central Michigan University, like we got another kid, this Brahan Raymond kid, who is looked to be a big 6'7" tackle that may go in the first round. Eric Fisher
type guy,
Joe Staley. We send left tackles in the first round, and that's when we're MAC school. So you can find linemen anywhere. You really can. Offensive linemen. Defensive linemen, not so much. But I'm just making a point that I think it's the skill positions where you really, really can you do separate yourself.
Yep, agreed. These nuts would like us to talk about the schedule release.
You had to say the name.
Yeah, that's his tag. His
or
her. Actually, I don't know. The Michigan schedule was, I guess, re-released because it was released and they made some edits, which really the only big difference I saw was the Michigan State game is now a home game, which, we talked about it, I think of last week or the week before, that ended up being a back-to-back away game. So they fixed that. It's a home game. Really, that's the big change. You still have, I'll run down the schedule real quick. Guys, your out of conference is borderline, and this is bad. So you start off, and I won't do the dates just to make it quicker, but you go Colorado State at home, Hawaii at home, Connecticut at home, Maryland at home. Then you're on the road at Iowa, at Indiana, home to Penn State. Bye week, Michigan State at home, at Rutgers, Nebraska at home, Illinois at home, and at Ohio State. The tough part is you are going to, essentially Michigan's going to have the same type of season they had this year, where you can maybe lose one game in conference, but you're not giving yourself any style points with your out of conference. That's just really bad. And I know they don't schedule these things, right? They didn't schedule this last year. Like, these are things that are set years and years in advance, but just not a great schedule. There's not really going to be too much to come from it, especially those first 4 weeks. We're not going to really know what Michigan is until at least October. That in October you got at Iowa, at Indiana, take that for what it's worth, and home against Penn State, and then you got Michigan State at home after the bye week.
I value look. Me and you differ on this. I value we'll see. How Iowa is. 4 weeks into the season, but let's say it's a typical Iowa team. I value going into play at Iowa. Like I think day or night. I think that'll be a really good initial test for the team. Look, as Michigan fans, we have to be careful not to be too defensive when people say it's a soft schedule, because it is a soft schedule. It just is what it is. It doesn't mean we're the only team with a soft schedule, but like you look at our opponents, they're at least initially, they're pretty weak. Connecticut Hawaii and Connecticut may be literally the two worst teams in what would be Group A? What's this called? Group A, Division I football.
So this is Division 1A. 1AA would be the.
I swear, I'm trying to be dramatic. Connecticut and Hawaii may be the two worst team in 1A Division I football. Like seriously, like they're absolute trash.
Yeah,
trash.
They're
okay,
awful.
so it's like it is what it is, and they're two of the first four. And then we have Colorado State, and this ain't the who's terrible, right? And then we have Maryland, who's one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. Oh, but they got baby TT, so like they're still not good, So it's like it just is what it is. Like, and as Michigan they should run a table before going into Iowa.
Yes.
And what Des, me and you will have to do, and our fellow fans will have to do. We'll have to tailor and take those wins and that record with a grain of salt. I understand that. Yeah, Michigan's here's what I can tell you guys right now. All right, do not expect, based on how the schedule looks, for us to be just hyping up Michigan going into Iowa. Okay, I can already tell you initially how I'm going to feel. This is a test. I still don't know much about our team in terms of how good we can be, but we're handling business. That's what the first 4 weeks is going to be about. Just handle your business, right?
Yeah.
But we're not going to know much about this team until after they play Iowa. That's just it is what it is. Now, to a lot of you people are bringing up their favorite team, Bama. Look, there's no doubt that Bama doesn't play the toughest schedule at times, and then they always had that little cupcake game late November.
The whole SEC has it, so it's correct. Yes, they have that. So Bama plays Austin Peay State the week before Auburn, but they're also at Texas on the second week of the season. So you know what I mean? They're going to have at least a Power 5 school. They played, I think, Louisville, Duke. They've had Virginia Tech. They've had Michigan on the schedule preseason, or not preseason, out of conference. USC. So okay, but
Cassia winning national titles,
right? And that's what I was just gonna say.
And here's why I don't understand what you guys are saying, but here's why I don't get too caught up in the weeds on that. Is because when your team has the cachet of, no matter how weak your schedule is, they still show up and they prove themselves against the better teams, then I can give you the benefit of the doubt of having a weaker schedule, because I know that you have consistently shown that you're at that high level no matter how your schedule plays out. But when you are a team like Michigan and you're on the rise, right, and you're trying to figure out how to become a consistent great team, then
well, think about it. Let's do this, and this is going to be a hypothetical because I'm not going to pull up Oklahoma's schedule, right? So let's say that Michigan wins all their games and loses a close game to Ohio State, and Ohio State goes to the Big Ten championship, wins it, right? Whatever. Let's say Oklahoma essentially does the same thing. Let's say they win out and say they get to the Big 12 championship game but lose, right? When you're looking at the schedules, but like Michigan has given themselves not a lot of wiggle room. You know what I mean? Because you don't have even say whatever, Texas or let's say you played USC and beat them in the out of conference. At least you can have a team to where someone can point to and say, well, USC finished 8-4. That's a quality win that maybe Oklahoma doesn't have, but when it's vice versa and it's just like, man, like, and let's say Michigan doesn't blow the teams out either. The 4 teams that they have on their schedule, say it's a 28-10 game. You're just, it's hard to get the benefit of the doubt from the voters. And we know this is an invitational. The college football playoff is an invitational. We get it, but that's the system that we're dealing with. So you need as many style points as you can. And I'm not sure you're going to get any playing Connecticut. That's all I'm saying. The schedule is what it is. You're not going to change it. That's fine, but
it's about giving yourself as much cushion as possible.
Exactly. That's
possible.
all it is.
Especially when you play in a tougher conference like this, where you can drop a game or two. Especially, 2, you kind of pretty much kill yourself.
Yeah, 2, you're done. Yeah.
But if you drop a game, maybe if you have that tougher non-conference, or maybe if that one loss, like for example, I believe Notre Dame and Ohio State play week 1. Of this upcoming season in the fall. Like,
that'll be interesting.
Think about that. Like, if the Buckeyes lose that game and Notre Dame goes on to have a great season, there's no shame in that. And when the committee weighs that out, and let's say Ohio State runs the table, right, and they're 11-1, but their one loss is to a great Notre Dame team, like, okay, yeah, we don't really care, right? And vice versa, let's say Notre Dame. Maybe it's better to say because Ohio State has the benefit of winning the Big Ten and all that. But let's say for Notre Dame in particular, their one loss is against the Ohio State team. Let's say it's a really close game, right? But they run the table. Maybe that helps them. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like it's just.
Well, but think about Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame dropped one game this season and didn't get in the playoff. Granted, we know they're not in the conference, all that stuff, but still, you're a one-loss team and you didn't get in. So, but I agree with Les Toast Media is that all we have to do is win the Big Ten and you're in, and I agree with that. Absolutely. There's not a we don't have an argument there. And Madi Go Blue said UConn game is a gift to UConn from Ward Manuel. UConn game is first real job. Listen, you're the athletic director at the University of Michigan. You don't have this. Isn't.
We don't do hookups, man. Like
right. No, this is not. Yeah. You. There's too much riding on this to do things like that. Like I understand if that's what happened. That's great. That's golden. But this is big time football. This isn't mom and pop shop. You've got to make big decisions.
What are we complaining about? What have we complained about? We're pointing out that Michigan has a weaker schedule. Not complaining. I mean, they just have
all FBS teams are not created equally. UConn is very different than Texas or Ohio State or Notre Dame. So,
like, and did we come? If I'm not mistaken, did we come up on this topic saying that this schedule was St. Michigan's season? No one said that. No one said that at all. We just clearly said that their schedule is weak. We also said that they're not the only team with a weak schedule, but this is a Michigan channel. So we're talking about Michigan. Their schedule is weak. It is what it is. Like, I mean, we can't lie. Man, Daz, I can't wait for that September Hawaii game. Like I just whatever. Like, and for me as a person who's watching the game, like I don't really pull anything out of Hawaii. Like I'm watching the game and it's probably gonna be 45 zip by halftime, and we're gonna be bored, right? And we're gonna be playing our third string. Like I'm talking me, I'm gonna be bored as a fan. Like I like to watch games that I can pull stuff from, right? It's no fun playing the weak teams because pretty much after the first 3 drives, it's like, ooh, this is fun. We're up 21 zip. Once you get to about 35 zip, it's just like it's boring as hell. Like so.
Yeah, you're never going to complain about winning, but like, it's just there's an excitement level that that you miss, when you play those tougher teams. It'll be interesting to the goal is going to be to sharpen the iron to get you to Iowa. Like that's going to be the focus is to improve week after. I mean, really, that's the goal every week. But really, that buildup is going to be the Iowa game. I think this year it was more the Washington game because I think we all thought Washington would be better than what they were. But yeah, the buildup was to the Washington game and then to the Wisconsin game. So there'll be some similarities, but yeah, like I said, it just, I don't know. We'll see what happens with it, but is what it is.
And SEC, Steven says SEC plays FCS teams. Well, yeah, they play one of those per schedule. I don't think they do that their entire schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if Michigan beats teams that play tougher teams, it helps their SOS. Aren't you the same guys that had Michigan winning 7 or 8 before the season? Actually, incorrect. I had Michigan winning 5 or 6, if you want to be completely honest, and I own that. And I think at the time, based on what we knew then, based on we're not revision of history, which I hope you're not doing, Stephen. You're not, at the time, I thought there was a ton of question marks. At that time, we didn't know who the hell David Ojobu was. He came out of nowhere this season. Aiden Hudson had a good year, but he wasn't as good as he was this year, right? We didn't know who Andre Anthony was. Hassan Haskins was solid. Blake Corum didn't pop the way he popped. Donovan Networks was playing in high school the year before, right? Cade McNamara had like 3 games of experience. You're damn right. I didn't have them having the season they had this year. Because all the unknowns. So yeah, and there's no shame in that. There's no shame in that.
And the Vegas odd makers also had Michigan around 7-8 wins. So, is what it is. And then also too for the SEC, they've won the last 3 national championships. So, are we gonna what can information in that data?
Hold on, Dad. I don't like when people do that. Like you thought the team was going to be bad this year. So when a team turns out to be good, like you want me to eat crow? Do you think? Dad's help me? Cause I'm losing my mind. Do you think Don't you think as a fan that I want to come up here and say, you know what, we're going to win a national title every year. It don't matter what our schedule is. Go blue. We're going to destroy everyone. Hell to the victors. Like, I wish I could do that, but we don't live in that world, okay? And I call things as honestly as I can. You had question marks. The staff improvements were key. Brown, Warren.
So Stephen Brown, you were also wrong too. While we were wrong, you were too.
You had them at 10 wins of beating Ohio State, really, going into this season? Okay. Kudos to you, man. I don't see where you pulled that from. Of course. So you thought 36, 37-year-old, the first time defensive coordinator was going to have the season that he had, right? That's what
now because I loathed.
You thought that
Don
Josh
Brown.
Gaddis, who most of the fan base wanted canned a year ago this time, you thought that offense was going to have this miracle turnaround. Is what you're telling me? That's what you're telling me?
Hey, maybe there is a
no, Dad, I'm not done yet because I don't understand. I don't understand fans like this. Like, where are you pulling this from? We're going to have 10 wins this year based on what? What? But that was legitimate the year before. See, this is where Yep, ask John Ogden. Yes, he is better than Don Brown. And you thought he was better than Don Brown. You thought that Mike McDonald before.
Well, I didn't think anyone could have been worse than Don Brown. Don Brown was awful. So when we talked about it before the season,
Don Brown was not awful. Majority of the season.
He was awful. What boosted up those Michigan defensive numbers was you beat the mess out of the Rutgers and the Purdue's of the world, the Marylands. Like, you stomped the awful teams. And then when it came to anyone who was worth their salt, their defense didn't play well because you had an awful scheme. So I didn't think the defense could get any worse. So I thought McDonald would be better than that. But is what it is. Yes, Don Brown was hot garbage.
I don't know if that's fair to say Don Brown was hot garbage, man. Like
what? Hold on. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Don't do that. I never said I liked Don Brown. I didn't like Don Brown either, and I wanted him canned years ago. Right? I wanted him canned after the 60 burger. Okay, I wanted him gone then. Okay, I didn't want him to get on the plane or bus back to Columbus. Like, that was it. All right. Once they kept exposing those crossing routes, we didn't have an adjustment. I was done then. Okay, but yeah, we like to at Ohio State. You hear everybody? No,
Because
but
it's true. He was awful.
but hold on. No, it's not fair to say awful, man, because his defense did a really good job against
No.
9 or 10 of
Nope.
the games.
Because we work together. So we talk about this all the time. And I feel I was pretty consistent in, no, those defenses are bad. You just beat up on the really bad teams. That's my, thoughts.
Okay. I mean, if everyone's saying Darren Brown's
Yeah,
trash,
Brown, he was. When high school concepts can beat you at the Division I level, the high level Division I level, you have an awful scheme. And the fact that you keep doing that shows that you are a trash defensive coordinator. He could be a great guy, but trash defensive coordinator.
Terrible mustache, though. Didn't like the mustache, but whatever.
Shocking. Will Harbaugh head to the pros? I don't think so. Do you think? I mean, we talked about this last week.
Look, none of us know. That's the truth. But to be my personal opinion, I think this is a power play for more money and more, and in particular, more power to do and freedom to do what he wants to do with the program in terms of NIL and transfer portal. I think that's where
you don't think he has that now.
Not as much as he could. Not as much as he could.
I think he's
especially with the branding of the Block M. Like the new administration has been really hesitant of allowing the freedom with that. It's not allowing the freedom that Harbaugh wants to give to his players to profit off the Block M.
No, it's not profiting off the Block M. It's profiting off of their own name, image, and likeness, not
brand.
Michigan.
That's sometimes the brand. Excuse me, the brand, and it's just I think that's he wants more. He's trying to win on a higher level. He thinks this is the avenue. I think just like myself, when I was saying, this is the opportunity. This is the opening to possibly start taking advantage of some of these things to get it to that next level. And I think he's trying to make sure he has all the tools and resources to be able to do that. Because I said this, I think last week or the week before, he will never find he has the best job for him. Like he's got his respect back. Everyone loves him again on campus. He's a legend here as a player. He's finally delivered as a coach. His family's here. I believe his family's comfortable. His parents live here, I think. And everything's all good in the hood. Okay? So I just think it's going to be it would take a match made in heaven in the NFL to draw him. And I just don't see the Las Vegas Raiders as that. By the way, if you're the Raiders, based on the way their season has gone, let's say they win a playoff game, do you really not stay with your interim head coach? You know what I'm saying? That and that's an interesting thing too. How many of these jobs actually want him or be a good fit? Even for the Bears, people keep rumored him to the Bears. The Bears have been requesting interviews, and he ain't one of them.
Right, and that's what I was gonna say is the Bears season is over. The Michigan football season is over, so there's literally nothing keeping these two from meeting and having an interview. And if you try to tell me that there's some, Harbaugh secretly flying to Chicago, based on the people that are looking out for stuff like this, like the Daxton Hill flight tracker, that stuff on Twitter, people are over the top when it comes to searching for info like this and scoping things out. So I don't think there's a way Jim Harbaugh is going to be able to secretly fly to Chicago. I don't think we've heard anything about the interview because I don't think it's happening, and I don't think it's gonna happen. So I don't think that he's leaving because the interviews are being requested right now and are happening right now. So I mean, there are some coordinators who are getting ready for playoff games, so those guys obviously can't interview because they're doing prep for a playoff game. But Jim Harbaugh's season is over. So is the Chicago Bears season. So I don't understand why that interview wouldn't be happening right now, especially if this is a match made in heaven. wouldn't you get the match made in heaven interview done as soon as you possibly could? It just seems odd to me. But I just don't think it's happening. I think he's staying. I think he's happy
Yeah, nah.
because he's done so much to get the program to where it is now, and you finally get over the Ohio State hill. You finally win the Big Ten. You get to the college football playoff, and you've got a 5-star quarterback in tow, and now's the time that you're gonna make a move. Like I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I think the itch is there. I think there is a interest in a feeling of unfinished business in the NFL potentially there for him. I'm not in that quirky mind of his, but I don't. I think overall he has everything that he wants. I think when you all weigh it down, like I'm not. I think it'll be dishonest to say like, oh yeah, he has no interest. I mean, of course he has some interest of potentially playing, coaching the NFL. It's the highest level of the profession, right? But all in all, I think he's really comfortable where he is. I do.
Well, and I actually, on the point of getting everything that he wants here, I actually do think he is getting everything that he wants or needs now. I could be wrong in that, but with NIL stuff like that, because if you remember around Thanksgiving, Blake Corum was passing out turkeys that he purchased with NIL money.
Right.
Like, and JJ McCarthy I can't remember exactly what he did, but he had donated his some NIL money to charity. So it's happening. It may not be as public as, the Bryce Young or Quinn Ewers deals were, but it sounds like these guys are getting the NIL.
I think Harbaugh wants the ability to do a Quentin Ewers type deal. Like I think he wants the ability to one day do something.
But see, that's not, from what I understand, that's not facilitated by, like, Ohio State didn't facilitate that. Like, Quinn Ewers, whoever his representation was, did that. So I don't think Ohio State got that for him, because if that's the case, why wouldn't they get something for Stroud? He's a starter. You know what I mean? I don't think it's, and maybe I am totally clueless on NIL, but from what I know, it's not facilitated by the school. So it's really not even something that Harbaugh has to worry about as far as obtaining. Obviously you want to help the kids out as far as, managing your money, but now they can get agents. So it's, you know what I mean? Like there's not even, it's not as if they need Harbaugh to go out and, broker these deals. He's not having to do that.
True.
So I think I think he is getting what he needs as far as the NIL stuff. Now, transfer portal, you might have a point, because I haven't seen any type of communication when it comes to that. I know they got, I think, a big defensive tackle recruit who's coming on campus, I believe, this weekend, but I don't know. And that's the tough part with the transfer portal too. Unless these guys get in the portal and then go on like an official visit, you'll never really know. So it's kind of tough to call, but I mean, there's a slew of guys in the transfer portal, quite a few. I mean, it's crazy seeing it on Twitter, just literally nonstop. And I'm sure there's probably some hidden gems in there, but you're talking about updating and upgrading that front seven. I mean, I'm sure there's at least a couple guys in the portal who could help you. So
now I think what part of your recruiting coordinators or however you structure your staff, you also just how NFL teams have pro personnel scouting departments, right? Now I think due to the transfer portal that these Power 5 programs, the big time programs, are going to have to now structure their staff to have like a college personnel scout. I think that's the next step if they don't already do that. Like, because when you do the way you've seen kids transfer nowadays, that's how you're gonna know. Hey, we gotta get this kid's available. You almost gotta, like, college football is becoming more and more like the NFL now, and that'll be because I'll put it this way: if Michigan State, me as a Michigan fan, if Michigan State gets another kid like K9 before we do, I'm gonna be ticked.
I agree. I agree. And the thing is too, there's guys out there. I mean, there's guys, but I mean, it as of today, it doesn't seem to be a strategy. But the thing is you look at guys. I mean, the teams at high levels are going in and getting really good players from the transfer portal. So if you wanna compete with the high level teams, you have to do those types of things. And like I said, it's you're going to bat for again for some of these guys that you tried to recruit out of high school. So you get to build on that relationship that you've already built. So, obviously, Alabama and Georgia just played, but we had Williams for Alabama, even their middle linebacker, Henry To'o. He was a transfer from Tennessee. When they, fired their coach and they had a mass exodus of talent, the dude was amazing at Tennessee and came in and played well for Alabama. And to me, there's no reason that those two use cases couldn't be applied at Michigan. They can absolutely get guys like that from the transfer portal, but you got to put you got to throw your hat in the ring if you're going to try to get some of these guys.
Of riches. You hear me?
Right?
Like I don't care. I know we got JJ. I'll be completely honest. Like I had it for a brief moment throughout the day at times. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I love JJ, but Caleb, hey man, look, Caleb. Look,
man,
he's in the playoff. I saw what you did to Oklahoma Sun.
Is this your pitch to Caleb?
We can get you there, and that's a pretty, wealthy alumni. We get you with some nice businesses to really get you set up for a turn to being their sponsor person. So, hey man, look, I'm all about winning, and I think as Michigan fans, Michigan's always prided themselves on Michigan man and tradition and loyalty, and those who stay will be champions. And I think one thing that we have to get more used to in terms of today's landscape is that you have to be all in to win or not. All in to win or not. And I no longer care about uh kids who are recruited for us, choose us from the beginning and stay here the whole time. If you can play, son, you are welcome here at the University of Michigan. As long as you're not a bad you're not going to embarrass university off the field.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, if you can play, you're signed up. Let's go win some football games. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. At the end of the day, 15 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you remember, you don't care about how many kids Michigan graduated. Unfortunately, I'm talking about from a football program standpoint.
Yeah. You want it to happen, but that's not going to be the.
You want it to happen, of course, but come on, like it is, like so, and you have to be all in on that. That's all.
Yeah, Steve, and mostly Noble said that. That could be wrong, but a lot of high level schools aren't living out in the transfer portal, and I agree with that. The goal isn't. You want to have your recruiting class, right? You want to get the best high school talent that's coming out of high school that you can. And then you want to sprinkle in one or two guys from the transfer portal. Excuse me. So it's not as if you're looking to get a mass exit or a mass overhaul of guys in the portal. You just want one or two guys that you have seen in the portal, or that you've seen play or think can play at a high level, and bring one or two guys in. So I'm not saying, to bring in 10, 15 guys from the portal, because you only have a certain amount of scholarship. So you're already talking to high school kids that are graduating and coming into the program. It's one or two guys that you want to bring in that can be a game breaker for you. A K9, a Jamison Williams, something like that. So and mostly Noble said the same thing.
You should always be in player acquisition. In a player acquisition phase, especially a really good player. If you think there's an opportunity in which you can, because you in college football, you're constantly cycling through youth. Well, they're all young, but I'm trying to say in terms of classmen, youth to veteran, freshmen to veterans, freshmen to veterans, freshmen to veterans, right? And so, to prevent extreme dips in your program success, you can use the transfer portal to kind of be that bridge of players who have some experience and they don't need that year or year and a half for seasoning, right? They can you can plug and play right away. So no, you definitely don't want to live out there, but you definitely want to take advantage of it and not ignore it either.
But I think about a guy who just got in the portal from Alabama, and Drew Sanders. He's an outside linebacker, kind of a bit of a pass rusher. Michigan's losing two really, 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 really good elite pass rusher outside linebackers with Aiden and Ojabo. So it's like what you had just mentioned, Dre, with not having big dips, right? Because if we come back next year and we don't have anybody who can get to the passer, well, things are going to look a lot different. So ideally, you'd like to be able to get somebody else in. And even if you have a freshman who's on campus now, but just isn't quite ready, that's when that transfer portal comes in, where you get a guy who's ready to play today, get him on campus, get him in that defense, get him acclimated, and unleash him and let him rock and roll.
Yeah.
So that's the goal.
Has a year and a half, 2 years of eligibility, and by the time he graduates, or at least for NFL, whatever you choose to do, that freshman 5-star kid, 4-star kid, hopefully you recruited well, he's ready to go. He's ready to come into his own, and that's just how that's how you help prevent those dips. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I think that is it for us. Anything you got to say while we peace out?
No, man. Like, look, with like this Harbaugh thing's gonna be a constant thing. It's, I choose not to get emotionally involved in it because I just don't put much into it. This is, every other year besides last year, especially when Michigan's had at the very least good seasons, he's always rumored to the NFL. So, this
it's going to be a tough thing. It's going to be an annual thing, no matter how well or poorly a season works out with Michigan. Like, he's always going to be rumored just because of the success he had there in the NFL. And like you said, I think there is a part of him that does probably want to get back, or at least thinks about it, just because it is the highest level. What's up?
Question for you. What I find interesting? Like, you never see Saban or Dabo or even Ryan Day really rumored to the NFL like Harbaugh's always rumored. Do you think the reason why he's rumored so much more is because he has success on the NFL level?
Yes. Well, and Dabo's never been there. And, I have heard some rumors with Ryan Day.
NFL experience, and he has success there.
Yes.
Probably.
Did you think it was going to be something different?
Like after the Dolphins situation, you never seen Saban rumored to. I swear, I haven't seen Saban rumored to NFL in years. And,
I don't think he wants to go.
No, I don't either. But even Dabo, you don't really see. And look, we don't have to go into a depth. I mean, you've had our conversations off stream about Dabo, but with the success that Dabo's had at Clemson, I never see him rumored to NFL. And even Ryan Day, you kind of see a little stuff here and there, but nothing like really that big. So even Lincoln Riley, you don't really see Lincoln Riley before he, really.
I don't remember. Well, no, because when the Cowboys had because McCarthy's been there 1 year, whatever. When the Cowboys' job was up, it was things I heard were Urban Meyer, and also I did hear a little bit of Lincoln Riley. As far as rumored, I don't think it was clear that he would take it or anything like that. But it's one of those things. It's the Cowboys' job. Like, it's that's the Dallas Cowboys. But yeah, I think it's just because of the success that Harbaugh had. Like, he did a phenomenal job in San Francisco. Immediately as soon as he got there, they had success. So I think that's why it gets rumored so often. And then with his ties of playing for the Bears, because I believe he played for them. So I think that's part of it as well. I don't know if he was the one who communicated kind of dream job or anything like that, but it seems like that's something that continuously comes up of the Chicago Bears. And super odd that Harbaugh's been here, 7-8 years, and it's been 2 cycles already of head coaches for the Chicago Bears, which shows how awful they're doing.
Hey, I'm a Lions fan. I'm not boo-hooing for them. Tough luck. Look at our coaching history.
That's another stream too.
Talk about the good old Detroit Leos, baby. All right.
All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. Have a good one. Be safe. Peace.
Peace.